Hey guys, welcome to this week's live video. I have Lauren Hum on the other line here. You can't see her right now, but she's listening. And we are super, super excited to have Lauren here. She's going to talk to us all about passion projects, which is something we haven't really talked much about on here yet. And I think it's going to be really valuable for all of you. So just as always, if you can hold your questions to the end, we've taken some not live, like outside of this video that we're going to be able to answer. But if we have time at the end, we'll do kind of a lightning round and see how many Lauren can answer, play a little game. But yeah, so hold your questions to the end and we've got lots of fun stuff to talk about. So let's get Lauren up on the screen right now. Welcome, Lauren.
Oh, yay. Hi, everybody. I can't see your comments, I guess, or hear you, but hello. I'm in Los Angeles right now. Thank you so much for having me, Becca. This is going to be exciting.
Tell everyone exactly where you are right now.
I'm in my grandma's office. Well, it's my brother's office. I'm at my grandma's house right now. I'm hanging out with my grandma. I flew home for Father's Day. Just chilling. So I'm not going to show you the rest of the room because I don't want you to think this is my studio, but yeah, just
I have the opposite problem because I do want to show you this studio. You're in your grandma's, I'm in my mom's, and my mom is an artist.
Beautiful studio.
I'm not going to show you the whole thing because I could be here all day.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so just for reference, the Wi-Fi where I am is not great right now. So if my face freezes in an awkward thing, I'm not making like a resting bee face to you. It's just the Wi-Fi. So but for anyone who doesn't know you, Lauren, can you just do a little intro on who you are? And I mean, I was surprised today. I put a poll on Instagram, like, do you know who this is? And I couldn't believe that there were even like one person who didn't know. But I guess there are some people who don't know you. So can you just?
No. The internet is so big, even in like the lettering or creative space. Like, I'm sure there are people out there who have like 500,000 followers that I don't know about. So hello, anyone who doesn't know me. My name is Lauren. I am an ex-art director at an advertising agency turned hand letterer and illustrator. I started my career in New York City. Went to the School of Visual Arts. If anyone's in the group who went to SVA, hey. And I got a job in advertising right after I graduated school. I only lasted about 9 months. I was able to leave my job and go full-time freelance into lettering. And everyone's always like, wow, that was so brave. That's so risky. Like, how did you do it? And the answer, and this is what I'll be talking to you about today, are passion projects. So rewind a year before I got my first job. I was a senior in college and I was studying advertising and marketing, but I had always like dabbled in hand lettering on the side. And I started a blog, a Tumblr blog for anyone who remembers Tumblr. It's still a thing, but it's not as much of a thing, I think. Maybe it's because I'm 27 now and like not 19 that I've kind of outgrown it. I'm not sure. But I started a Tumblr blog called Daily Dishonesty. And this was back in 2012. I was lettering all of the little white lies that me and my 20-something-year-old girlfriends would say. So stuff like, calories don't count on the weekend, or I'll be there in 5 minutes, or I'm almost ready when you actually totally aren't. So I started just posting these like every couple of days, which actually worked perfectly with the concept because daily dishonesty. So I posted them every couple of days. And I really posted them with no other intention than to have just this kind of like fun series so I could practice my lettering, show it to my friends, just all under one kind of little house. So I bought dailydishonesty.com, started putting up these little colorful hand lettered pieces. The lettering wasn't even that good. It was very, very rudimentary. I was just trying to find my voice and just experimenting, really. There was no big game plan. And little did I know it was going to kind of take the internet by storm. I don't even know what happened. It just kind of got discovered on Tumblr. It started trending in different places. And over the next 6 months, I had amassed like 20,000 followers. I had my work written up about in blogs. And this is me. Keep in mind, I'm 21 years old, a senior in college, being like, what is happening? And I was getting, featured in blogs. And then a literary agent reached out and was like, hey, I think this could be a book. I found your stuff on Pinterest, and I didn't put it on Pinterest. I guess it just ended up on Pinterest, which was the beauty of the internet and sharing. And so the same week that I graduated college, this is May 2013, I was also signing a book deal for this project that I had started, 8 months ago. And I just could not believe it. And, if someone had told me that was what the outcome was going to be. I would not have believed them at all. And the cool thing about having my work circulating around the internet, and this isn't even like, my work is much better now. This wasn't even my best work circulating. It was just my beginning work. And I was just putting myself out there, not really thinking too much about it. I started getting freelance requests. And so all of this stuff built up this foundation of this like budding hand lettering career, even though my degree and like all of my efforts for the last 4 years had been towards getting a job at an advertising agency. And I still could not bear to like let my parents down. They put me through school. And so I got an advertising job and hated it. I was working, making banner ads and just doing the junior art director stuff that you're supposed to do. And I thought, you know, I was just putting in my dues. But 6 months in, I was like, I cannot take this anymore. Like, I'm 23, I'm burnt out. Like, how is this going to be a sustainable career? And so little did I know I had built this like invisible life raft behind me of a career. And when I decided I was going to leave, I really just put a little plan into action. I spruced up my portfolio. I made it all lettering as opposed to some advertising work and other design stuff. I started reaching out for representation. I started saving money, sending out feelers in my network of like, hey, like I'm going to be a letterer. And then I left, and it's been 4.5 years, and here I am, and still a full-time hand letterer doing my own thing. And so that is the role that passion projects have played in my life. And as you can tell, huge role. Like, had I quit my job without having Tumblr followers and my name in different design blogs and a book deal under my belt, I do not think it would have been nearly as seamless as it was. There's no way it would have been as seamless as it was. And so even if you love your job right now, or even if you're perfectly happy, I am such a huge proponent of passion projects because they keep you motivated and excited, and they give you something to work on. And they also act as a plan B, even if you don't need a plan B right now. What I can tell you from what I've learned in 27 years is it's the same way you save up, I guess, money in your bank account. Like, it's good to kind of have an extra creative like arsenal or resource to dip into, something else that you could do, something else that you like to do, just in case there's some like crazy technology that comes out that takes their jobs. Just kidding. Don't want to scare anybody. I think we're going to be fine. But yeah, that's been my whole passion project journey. And I kept launching different ones, like maybe one a year for the last couple years. And I realized there was like a rhyme and a reason to it. And there was kind of this pattern that I could follow, this formula I could follow to keep turning out these like very shareable passion projects. And I've been doing them ever since. And each new project keeps growing my career in a different way. So that's what I'm here to chat with you about today.
It's so like your story is so unique in that sense. Like, I feel like most people don't just like accidentally stumble upon this like immediate fame, you know? I think that's so cool.
It was so immediate from the beginning, and it was interesting. And one thing I've been talking to a lot of people about too is I was 21 when all of this was happening, 22, and people are like, oh, weren't you scared to put your work out there? Weren't you scared to take a risk? Weren't you scared to reach out to agents? And I always joke that because I was so young and I was too young to overthink things. I didn't know, I was naive, and so I just went for it. And another thing was that I was trying to be an art director in advertising, not a hand letterer. So I didn't put any pressure on myself to be a hand letterer. If a post like tanked and didn't get as many likes, it did not matter to me because it was not what I wanted. It wasn't what I thought I wanted to be doing full time anyways. And so there was kind of this beauty to my like not knowing and not really caring as much. I think that so many people it's amazing to know that you want to pursue something like lettering or something like graphic design or a specific kind of thing and be really passionate about it. But that also comes with its own set of hyper, I think, self-criticism. And so me not really putting too much pressure on it, I think that a passion project can be great because you still have your other thing that you do for full-time income or something, or maybe you're even freelancing and you're doing that for income, but your passion project can be your creative play space, but and also a place where you don't have to put those daily pressures and that like hyper criticism on your work. And I think you make your best work when you're not shredding it apart immediately after you make it.
We actually got a really good question from Sabah, and she said, does your passion change at all when it becomes paid work versus when it's just for yourself? So just to clarify, like when we're talking about a passion project, you're talking about something that's completely separate from making money. Like this is something you're doing because you enjoy doing it. But at some point, like those things turn into sort of advertising, especially at this point for you. So it sort of is still work in a certain way, right? So how do you kind of differentiate that, and how do you not like make it a suck of your energy as opposed to making it like a passion project?
Absolutely. So I was talking with some friends about this the other day. I've been lettering full time for 4.5 years now, and there are projects that I take on sometimes that do feel like work. And maybe I was joking with my friends, like I have no control over exactly the kind of clients that seek me out. Like maybe there's like a 6-month streak where like only like medicine companies or like Pepto-Bismol wants to work with me, and I'm just like lettering like upset stomach and diarrhea and all this stuff that like I have no control over. So I still love lettering, even if it's on a brief that like I'm not super jazzed about. So I still like the actual lettering part. I think one of my biggest tips for making sure that you don't become resentful of it, your passion project that I'm speaking to particularly, is before you even start something, and this is what I teach my students, and I spend 4 weeks going over this in my class, and it seems like such a long time, but it's so important because I come from a creative marketing background. You need to do a lot of work on picking an idea for your passion project. It's not only, honestly, the execution is the easy part. I think that really honing in on what is the skill I want to promote, what do I love working on right now, what is the skill that I want to be honing, and then what is a topic or an idea that I think is either laugh out loud funny or like super world changing and important, or this is like a really big issue in my life or my community's life. I think that putting in that extra work at the beginning, so instead of just being like, I like dogs, I'm going to draw dogs and do a passion project about dogs, really having a little bit more of like a meatier idea that you can sink your teeth into that has a little bit of either personality or purpose, I think can be really helpful in keeping that momentum going. So with Daily Dishonesty, I wasn't just lettering little like happy phrases or like motivational phrases that I could find on Google. I was actually drawing inspiration from my life, my friends' lives, like the actual things that were happening to us that we would, lie about and giggle about. And that was really, really motivating because not only did I only have a constant source of like material to work with, like it was something I was deeply invested in because it was my own life. And so that's a bit of advice I usually give too, is if you don't know where to start for your passion project, basing a project off of your own life or your own experiences or you and your friends can be a really great place to start. And so look at like your inside jokes, look at things that have happened to you, look at your group text. What do you and your friends text about? I think that those conversations that are going on behind closed doors are great places to start for a passion project, especially a lettering based passion project, because we all know that, it's like, okay, like song lyrics, quotes from movies, quotes from famous people, like what else can I possibly letter? And the answer is if you write your own material too, like it's stuff that people haven't seen before, and also stuff that isn't copyrighted, so you can sell it.
Yeah, I think this is a really good discussion topic. And actually, we had another question from Jodi who asked, when you're starting a passion project, how do you validate your idea so you know it will resonate? Like, do you ever I know you're saying like you think about, what will be funny or what would be new for people, but do you ever actually do any pre-validation, like post something before you start the passion project and see if it does well or anything like that?
I think I've personally never done any like testing, like I'll make one piece and send it out. I've never done that before. I usually just follow my gut. I know that's like a really like random, it's really not tangible at all. So when I say follow my gut, my test is usually one, how excited am I about it? Do I think it's smart? I think we often don't trust our own judgment and creativity enough. And so I think, are the first test. And then instead of showing it to your entire audience of people who might not even be designers, might not really, understand it right away, I normally will talk about the idea with like my inner circle of creative friends. So not even family. Don't ask your dad, don't ask your grandma, unless your dad is like a creative confidant for you. I don't know. Your mom is a painter. Yeah.
Or unless your grandma is as cool as your grandma.
My grandma is pretty cool. And I definitely could make some projects about her because she's awesome. But yeah, I'd say that I usually use my friend group as the kind of test. And this is also speaking from the point of view of someone who I make projects that are mostly humorous, that kind of poke at everyday life. I would say I've done projects about like I said, everyday little lies. I've done projects about breakups. I think that for me, I'm very like, I'm a very emotional person, and like I definitely like feel a lot of things. And so a lot of my projects are based on like emotions. And so I think bouncing ideas off of my friends or the people I've had those experiences with is kind of how I test. One thing I will say about sending stuff out into your audience to test, that's one way to do it. But you also don't, if you're super stoked about something and you post it on Instagram, there are other factors at play. Maybe you post it kind of on an off day. Maybe the algorithm just isn't in your favor that day and the post kind of tanks, or maybe you don't do a good job explaining it. And then you're like, okay, well, this one post didn't do well, so I definitely shouldn't do it. I don't know if that's the best test. I think there's so much that is out of your hands in terms of engagement when you post your work that I think that you just kind of have to go with me personally, like you and your friends. I think that's my best advice for validating your idea. You can explain it to a couple friends, and if 3 of your friends in a row say, huh, like I don't get it, then maybe you could do some tweaking. I think that if it takes too long to explain too, that can be a real deal breaker. And that is a really tough thing to do, especially if it's like a bit of a headier concept or needs a little bit more explaining. But I think that I always tell my students, like, have your passion project, come up with a title that, you know, at least alludes to what it is. So Daily Dishonesty could not be more descriptive. Like, it is the most descriptive title. But even then, I still had a tagline. So I always recommend having a tagline for your project, just like 1 or 2 sentences that kind of goes a little deeper or reiterates what your project is supposed to be. So someone, when they see it, is 100% clear on what it is, because you never really know. So Daily Dishonesty's tagline, I believe, was "Little White Lies from a Hungry Graphic Designer." So it was just a little bit more of an explanation, but I think the title explained itself. But yes, in terms of validating your idea, I think that your inner circle of creatives is a great place to bounce it off of.
Well, and I like where we're going with the titles of the passion projects, because I wanted to tell you, like, yours are always so on point. Like,
thank you.
I mean, but you also have like the punniest name. You could use your last name for everything. Like,
I got
homework
so
is like, duh, that's of course, that's the name of it. Like, it's so good. So can we, like, let's back up a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about like each of your different passion projects and kind of give, like, for the person who doesn't even know what we're talking about when we say passion projects?
Totally. Yeah. I've done a wide array of passion projects. So I started with Daily Dishonesty. That was hand lettered Little White Lies. And then that blew up. It was amazing. Wasn't expecting all of the success. And then after that, so obviously, you know, good things are followed by bad sometimes. I went through a really bad breakup, and I started a project, an actual physical product called Ex-Boyfriend Tears. And what that was, I was sitting at my desk with a coworker, and I was venting about my ex-boyfriend, and I wrote the words "ex-boyfriend tears" on a Post-it note and stuck it to my water bottle and was like drinking out of it to make him laugh. And it was honestly spur of the moment. It was very reactionary. And he laughed, and I left the water bottle on my desk, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, that's hilarious." And so I was like, oh, I think I have something here. And so I decided to turn it into a product. I was making cups and mugs and flasks, anything that you could drink out of, with the words "ex-boyfriend tears" on them. I lettered like a little logo, little mark, and then I had no experience producing products. Whenever people are like, how did you figure that out? Or do you have connections in that area? Google is my best friend. I was 23 years old. I was at my desk being like, laser engraved flasks, and just looked up a bunch of resources or different like providers or manufacturers, and did some research and figured out what file format they needed, how much it was going to cost, compared prices. It was very basic, actually. And I started selling those just on Big Cartel. And again, so something kind of cool that like links both of those projects, Ex-Boyfriend Tears and Daily Dishonesty, is by this time I had about 50,000 Tumblr followers for Daily Dishonesty. And when I launched Ex-Boyfriend Tears, I posted about it on my existing Daily Dishonesty blog, being like, hey friends, I just started this new project. If you like Daily Dishonesty, I think you might like this. Like, even though the ideas are not related at all, the tone of voice, the kind of person who would appreciate it is kind of the same person. Someone who's a little bit sarcastic and snarky and can poke fun at themselves, doesn't take themselves too seriously. And so I did that. And there was a lot of crossover where people who did follow Daily Dishonesty were interested in ex-boyfriend tears. And one funny story I like to tell is for those of you who like read a lot or who have seen John Green, he's an American author. He runs like a YouTube channel, and he wrote The Fault in Our Stars that got turned into like that big movie like 5 or 6 years ago. He was following Daily Dishonesty, and I had no idea because I had so many followers. And he reblogged it on his Tumblr blog, and he's got like 3 million followers. And all these orders came in at once, and I was like, where are these coming from? I sold out of everything. I sold out of all like 100 of my products. I only made like a really short run because I was like, maybe no one's gonna buy this. I'll just order 50 of these or 100 of these, and they all sold out, and it was crazy. But one bit of advice I can give too is even if you don't want to do a humor project, that's okay. But for me, making work that I personally enjoy, that is about things that I've gone through, from my point of view, with my tone of voice, the cool thing there is that even if you make a bunch of projects, there is going to inevitably be crossover because they're told by the story is told by the same person. The story is told in the same tone of voice. And you can make a bunch of projects that are seemingly unrelated, but are linked with the common thread of like you as the target audience. Like you're the type of person who resonates with you, maybe someone who was also in her early 20s who was going through a breakup, or who had a friend who was going through a breakup. The same person who says like, I'll be there in 5 minutes when they haven't left the house is probably somebody who would think ex-boyfriend tears is funny. So that was kind of a comment that where I was like, okay, like, and then that one, it got written up on a bunch of blogs, and I started selling these and like actually making decent amount of side income from it. I think in the 2 years I was running the project, I made about $10,000 from it, like net profit. And that was way more than I expected. It wasn't necessarily meant to be like a mega income generator, but that was like a surprising little chunk of money. And then after Daily Dishonesty, after ex-boyfriend tears, this was like a year after that, I was walking around Brooklyn. I was hungover. A lot of my ideas were sparked by like drinking or being hungover with my friends. I was walking around looking for brunch one day with my friend Sophie, and we noticed all of the chalkboard signs outside looked really terrible. And this is Brooklyn, which is like a really like hip place. And I usually don't really mind bad design, but I was kind of in a crabby mood, and I was like, these signs are all really gross. I don't want to eat in any of these restaurants. And she was like, yeah, you could do them so much better. And then I had this kind of light bulb moment where I was like, oh yeah, I probably could. Like, I don't do chalk, but I can do it. I've been doing it like with ink and paper and Photoshop for a long time. Like, why not chalk? And at that time too, I was also dating a chef, and he had told me like, I had experienced it too. Like chefs just like hook each other up. They hook their friends up with food that you can go in and like they'll comp a lot of food for you or give you a discount. And so knowing that too, I was like, I wonder if I could trade chalkboard signs, like refresh chalkboard signs for meals in New York City. And I, again, had the idea and immediately made it happen within the next like 2 weeks. I like whipped up this little flyer. I ended up during my lunch break, I would walk around Brooklyn in my neighborhood. I was in Crown Heights, for anyone who's in Brooklyn. Hey. And I would just walk into restaurants and be like, and I'm an extrovert, but I am terrified talking with strangers. I really don't like it. But so it forced me out of my shell. I would walk in with my flyers that explained the project, and I'd be like, hi, my name is Lauren. I'm a graphic designer in the neighborhood. I'm doing this project, and I was wondering if I could speak to your manager. And like, no big deal, but I got more confident as I went on, but I would pass out these flyers during lunch, and within a week I had restaurants who were emailing me being like, hey, our barista gave us this flyer, and like, yeah, we'd love to have you in, and like, we'll comp you lunch. And so the idea of the project was whatever I lettered on the chalkboard sign was what I got to eat. So that little conceptual tie-in people really liked. And I started a little Tumblr blog where I would post the chalkboard sign and then the food that I ate afterwards. So it was like kind of fun promo for the restaurant too. And within a week of posting this, I honestly just posted it to my own social networks at first. And this was back in 2014. And for those of you who follow me now, who's like, oh, of course, this was popular. She has a huge audience. Back in 2014, I had like 1,000 Instagram followers. So it wasn't really something that I like just had a big network to reach out to. But I posted it and people started sharing it with all of their restaurant friends. And I guess one of my friends was connected with like a writer at the New York Times, and they wrote about me on their food blog, which is Grub Street. And once that article launched, like just like 50 requests came in, and I started booking up like for all these chalkboard projects. And the cool thing was, once I did like one barter, I realized like, oh, okay, there's a ton of demand for this. I ended up, coming up with a system to kind of spin it into paid work after that. I'd be like, oh, sorry, I'm booked up for the next 7 weeks. I only do one of these per week because it's a barter and like I still have to pay my rent, and people totally understand that. But I'd be like, I'm booked up for the next 7 weeks, but like if you have a budget for the chalkboard, I could see if I have time in my schedule to come in earlier. And like 8 out of 10 times they'd be like, yeah, like when can you come in? Because the cool thing about a passion project is, I always use the analogy of a passion project is like a free sample at the grocery store. So instead of telling somebody about, I do this awesome chalkboard work, I'm really good, instead of telling them about it, you show it to them. And this could be done with a portfolio, of course, but instead your portfolio is just kind of housed on the internet and people have to find it. With a passion project, you're consistently putting it out there over and over again. Every time you post, every time a friend shares it with a friend, it's you keep putting it out there. And so the beauty of this project is that it kept getting shared, even if it was not like a big blog or something. Like even if a friend texted it to a friend or emailed it to a friend and was like, hey, there's a girl who does this. Because people kept seeing it over and over again, I became like the Brooklyn chalkboard girl, and it ended up turning into a bunch of paid work. And I even got some like commercial projects out of it that weren't necessarily for restaurants. And if restaurants would often too, if I did their chalkboard like in like 1 month, they'd want me to do it again and change out the specials. And I'd be like, sorry, I only do, one barter per restaurant, but if you have a budget for it, I'll come back. And once you do good work for somebody, there's a really good chance that they're going to want to keep working with you. So what Will Letter for Lunch did for me, a lot of people were like, oh no, but you were giving your work away for free. It wasn't free. It was definitely discounted because, a plate of spaghetti probably isn't worth the half hour or hour of work, but it got my foot in the door. The same way a free sample isn't going to make you money. You're technically, quote unquote, losing money, but it gives them a taste of what you do. And if they like it, they could be a lifetime customer. They could tell their friends about you. Like, it was honestly like a pretty brilliant marketing project that I didn't think through 100%. But I just learned as I went, and I figured out these systems where, I was like, oh, I have too many requests. What do I do about that? Or like, oh, like, if the last 3 restaurants, forgot to clean off their chalkboard for me before I got there, and that was a pain in the butt, maybe I need to add that to my flyer, or add that to my list of things. And so I learned how to navigate, and I did that for about a year. And then it got to the point where I was booking enough like professional work that wasn't necessary, because chalkboards, I think there kind of is a ceiling in terms of pricing for like a event or restaurant chalkboard. And so you're not going to be able to charge $1,000, $10,000 for an A-frame sign. It's just not, it's not really in the budget. But you could, take that same chalkboard lettering, and if it's for a big ad campaign for like a bakery, or a big ad campaign for, Nabisco or some like big cookie company or food company, that's where you can charge the $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. And so that started happening, which was cool. And so I was able to take these chalkboard skills that were originally just for restaurants and apply them to larger commercial projects. And it got to the point where I kind of had to shut the project down, and I just put a little notice on the website being like, this was a project run by like Home Sweet Home from 2014 to 2015. Like, for any to commission work, please email here. And I just kind of shut it down that way. And I still get emails sometimes being like, are you ever going to do this again? And the answer is, at this point in my career, it's not worth my time. I encourage people to do it in their own cities, though. I had so many people email me being like, can I do this? I don't want to steal your idea. And I was like, yeah, just, on your website or on the page, just say it was like inspired by me. Like, I didn't invent bartering. It's not, as long as you don't call it like Will Letter for Lunch, just call it something else. Totally fine. Okay, first of all, I love how that whole story played out, because it's amazing. It's like as soon as people can feel that you're passionate about something and that you're actually enjoying what you're doing, like, and not to mention it's funny because you'd post the food after and like stuff in your face with this food, which like people love. But I think it's so cool that it just kind of evolved like that. And I like where we're going with the abandoning the project thing, because it sounds like most of your projects have just naturally evolved into something else. But we had a question from Mabz. She asked, have you abandoned a project sooner than you wanted? And if so, did you feel like you were going to disappoint your audience? Or did most of them kind of just naturally fizzle out and turn into new things? I would say so. I let ex-boyfriend tears once I like sold out of my like I ended up I think I've produced like over 1,000 of these in the duration of the project. But once the last order kind of like shipped out, I was like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. It really had trickled down to like an order every other week. I wasn't promoting it as much because the truth is, even if you do something that's really successful at first, you are a creative person, and I think the natural tide just means that you're going to want to do something else. You don't want to, even if you love something 1 year or for 2 years, you're naturally creative and curious, and you're probably going to want to work on something else. I think that's just kind of the nature of a creative person's brain, which is a blessing and a curse sometimes. But I just kind of like put a little notice on my Instagram being like, hey, this is the last run I'm doing. Get yours while you can. And no one's complained and been like, you're a terrible person for not making these anymore. I think people understand. And I think that as long as you set expectations with your audience, that can be helpful. So like with Daily Dishonesty, I like had a little like, this has been 2014, I think I had, or 15 maybe. I had like a little farewell Daily Dishonesty art show at one of my friends, like wine shops. And I just like capped the project that way. I was like, hey, like, thank you all for the support. I did this online too. I posted about it. I was like, thank you so much for the support. Like, it's been 2 years. I'm off to like bigger and better things. And I encouraged everybody. I was like, please, if you enjoyed this, keep following along with my work here, here, and here. And so you can, even if not all of those followers for that project cross over, a good amount of them will. And I honestly built a lot of my fan base, I think, from these little passion projects. People, when someone sees one of your projects, chances are they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Who made it? I want to know everything about them. And that's where your portfolio or your Instagram is so important to link to. So people can learn more if they want to learn more. And if they don't, they can take it at face value. Maybe they hear your name once or twice and don't think anything else of it. But if you make another project in the future that they like too, they'll be like, oh, like this chick is actually really rad and like I should follow along with her work. So I started Daily Dishonesty before Instagram was even really a thing. This is in 2012. I didn't get on Instagram till late 2013, I want to say. And so it was really something where I wasn't necessarily driving traffic to an Instagram page originally. I was just driving traffic to my website. But now you can link to all your social media on your passion project site. So I like to think of a passion project as like the kind of like shiny, sparkly thing that gets people through the front door, and then they can find out more about you if they want. But I've personally never abandoned, like halfway through a project, been like, I don't want to do this anymore. One way to kind of protect, if you feel like you're like, I don't know, like I don't want this to be indefinite. It gives me anxiety to think that I have to run this forever. One thing that I usually recommend is set a number. You could say like this is going to be a year-long project. So sometimes it helps to have a finite kind of ending. You could say this is going to be a 15-part series, a 20-part series, and set it up that way. And then should you want to continue, then it's kind of like the cherry on top. If you feel like you're going to let people down, or if that's a worry for you, make it a finite thing. I think that's why something like the 100-day project that a lot of people do is really exciting, and like it's a nice format because it's like only 100 days, even though posting 100 for 100 days in a row is pretty nutty. Like that's a lot of work. And I think that one thing I recommend to people too who are a little intimidated by an indefinite project, they're like, are people going to expect me to post every day? Like you can set guidelines. Again, setting expectations. You could say, I'm going to do this project there's going to be 30 pieces. I'm going to post every Friday at like noon, I'll post a new piece. And then it's a really manageable schedule. Or you could say, I'm going to post twice a week. And then if you set some parameters before you even start your project and set those expectations with your audience, that can be a way to protect against that like creeping dread of like, are people like mad at me for not posting enough? Because you told them straight up, like, I'm only going to be posting once a week. That can be a good way to do it. I can personally say right now, I'm running 2 passion projects that like I've been so busy I haven't updated in like a couple weeks, and I feel kind of bad. But no one, I guarantee you, no one's come for me with like Instagram torches being like, how dare you not post another flower crown, or like where's the new piece? Like we demand to see the new piece. No one. I think one thing that's really helped me in my career is, yes, your followers want to know what you're up to and they care. But I guarantee you, there is no one who is sitting there refreshing your Instagram feed, checking your comments, being like waiting. I think people are delightfully surprised when you post and they're excited about it, but there's no one who is the same way that like we refresh posts to like see how many likes it's getting and like we see things in real time. No one else has time for that. Is there anybody you do that to? Like one thing that I always tell my students is like think about your personal behaviors and like how you, the people you idolize and the people that you really look up to, how do you interact with their content? Like, yeah, you might be on their Instagram page a lot, but I guarantee you, you're not hyper criticizing them. You're not mad at them when they don't post. I think that people are just cheering you on. So in terms of abandoning a project, if for some reason, like let's say there was like a health issue or there was a crisis in the family and you know you're not going to be able, you started the project and you're not going to be able to work on it for like a month or 2 months, you could just be like, hey, like something came up and just let your audience know. So they're not like on the hook and people are probably going to be super supportive. But that's on the off chance. It's probably rare that that'll happen. I think that setting a posting schedule can be helpful, setting some guidelines. But for me, I kind of leave mine kind of open-ended because I usually run a couple of things at once now because I like having my fingers in a lot of different creative things. But yeah, in terms of abandoning a project, as long as it's like abandoning a relationship. As long as you give the other party some closure and you let them know why, or just let them know what's up, your audience will be more than supportive. I guarantee it. I think that would be my best advice. And don't feel like you're going to disappoint your audience because if you're honest with them, then you won't.
Not to mention, like we're talking about projects that you yourself are super passionate about. So often, like if you're abandoning it, your audience is going to know that it's hard for you to do that. Like they're not going to attack you for it if they know that it's something it's already hard for you to do. And like if it's a passion project, it's something you want to be posting about all the time. It's not pulling teeth to do it. So
exactly.
Guess, yeah.
Which is why another little like passion project tip I can give you all is when I'm helping, I know, so for creatives, it seems to be, especially if you didn't come from like a creative marketing or like don't have a lot of experience coming up with like conceptual ideas. One thing to help validate your idea that I will tell my students is, let's say you have an idea. Can you make like on the spot right now, can you easily come up with at least 10 pieces for it, 10 ideas that fall under that branch? If you can't and you're struggling for it and maybe some don't kind of match, some don't, like maybe like give it a little time, think about it, because Daily Dishonesty, I think the beauty of that was it was honestly, the idea came from me and my girlfriends. We were drunk and we were laughing about like all these things that we said we were going to do that we actually didn't, weren't going to do. And it sparked the idea. I was like, oh my gosh, I lie about like these innocent little lies. Like I don't like do any big lies that are like actually detrimental, like really bad. I was like, I do this all the time. And I just automatically jotted down like 15 or 20 of them with my friends. And I was like, we're terrible. And then we, kept drinking. But I think that the ease with which you can come up with ideas for the project is important, because even if you're excited about it or passionate about it, I think the content creation, before you even draw or letter or execute the piece, coming up with having a set list of what you're going to make is really, really helpful too. So instead of having an idea for one amazing piece and then being like, yeah, this is going to be a passion project, have 10, 15, 20 ideas for pieces written out first. And then you have this list of ideas to draw from. And it really makes it easier than just making one piece of artwork from the get-go, or even 2 or 3, and then making a full-blown passion project out of it and announcing it and getting all excited about it. I would say start with the bare bones first, which is the concept, and then the ideas for your pieces within that concept to kind of like get you started. I think that's one thing that a lot of people run into is, and it's again, blessing and a curse of being creative, is you get so pumped and you get so inspired and you're ready to create, but you definitely don't want to like, run out of the gates like hot and like make 3 pieces that you love and then be like stuck for like, oh no, like what are the rest of them going to be? So definitely do a lot of the legwork first and think of the concept, think of the name, think of the pieces that are going to be in the series. So with Daily Dishonesty, I was just brainstorming all the time, or like writing things down all the time in my daily life that I lied about. Like I remember I was like updating my iTunes one day and like I saw the box that Apple makes you sign that says like, I've read and agreed to the terms and conditions and like the update or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's like the ultimate daily dishonesty. So I wrote that down. Or like I'd go on a date and something would happen and I'd be like, that was a daily dishonesty. And I just amassed this like list of little white lies. And so it was never hard for me to come up with content because I was creating content about my own personal experiences. And then those of my friends who I honestly think your friend group is your secret weapon, because not only are they a good like test audience, they are, if you're making projects about you and like your own life, chances are your best friends are pretty similar to you. I would bet that most of your friends that you are really close with have the same sense of humor or are passionate about the same things. And I think that that's really powerful to have some other humans in your kind of like ring that can also contribute to your project, just give you inspiration and ideas. Like you don't have to do it alone. Like I am not this like endless magical well of ideas. I draw inspiration from my friends so much, and I'm so grateful for them. Not only do they support me, but they are my muses.
So I know you said that you brainstorm your ideas ahead of time, but like stylistically, we had a good question from Maria. She asked, how do you keep a series cohesive? Do you ever have an odd one out that you love it, but you omit it because it doesn't really fit? Or do you kind of, as you're planning your ideas, do you plan the style as well at the same time?
So for Daily Dishonesty, because I was so fresh, I did not think about any of this ahead of time. The early bits of Daily Dishonesty, actually, if you go to dailydishonesty.com and scroll to the very bottom of the page and click on archive, you can see just like a little tiled grid of every single post I've ever made. And you scroll all the way back to like October 2012. So is that, oh my gosh, like almost 6 years ago. And you can see there isn't really a cohesive color palette. There isn't a cohesive kind of style going on. Some of them have illustration. Some of them are, I did one that was completely like vector based that does not match any of the other ones, because the other ones I had been doing with like Sharpie and scanning it in. So I was really finding my footing. One thing, like the easiest tip I can give you, and if you're not sure, if you're starting out and you haven't quite found your voice or you don't really know the style, just because you don't want to let agonizing over the style stop you from even starting the project. I think that's counterproductive. One tip I can give is just choose ahead of time a color palette that you're going to stick within. Maybe it's always going to be pink and teal and black or something. And if you always work within the same color palette, that's like an easy visual cue to let people know that like this is a cohesive series, even if the style kind of varies a little bit. That's like my best like quick and dirty tip for that. One artist who does it really nicely is Gemma Correll. I'm sure a lot of you follow her. She's an illustrator, I think, based in the UK. Gemma Correll or Correll. She has a huge following, and she does these really simple, like black and white kind of illustrations and cartoons. And sometimes they're about pugs, sometimes they're about anxiety, sometimes they're about like just random stuff. But because she keeps the color palettes and the style, so black, white, and red is her thing. Because she keeps it cohesive, it honestly, and her style is very consistent now. I think that color is an easy way to keep people like, let them know it's a series. And then another thing too, like for me, I think like with Will Letter for Lunch, I didn't necessarily have a chalk lettering style in mind. That was very experimental too. One thing that you can do to keep it cohesive too is always choose the same like format that you're going to display your piece in. So if you're doing a series, don't make one piece square and then the other one like a horizontal rectangle. Always keep them the same dimensions. I think honestly, same dimensions, same colors, you're good to go. You have a lot of wiggle room within that. I would say same medium too. So even if you're trying slightly different styles, as long as I wouldn't say jump from like vector to then like hand drawn in your notebook. I think keeping the styles somewhat consistent. Keeping the medium somewhat consistent is helpful visually. But honestly, yeah, color and canvas size are the easiest ways to do that and still give yourself a little wiggle room if you're not quite sure.
One thing I've learned a lot, like since I was traveling so much this year and I only had limited art supplies too, it was like the more you limit yourself, the more creative you get too. And like you really push yourself. So
totally.
Like giving yourself those parameters is actually a really good thing. And it's scary at first because you're like, oh, I can only do so much with this, but like you really will surprise yourself and it will look cohesive altogether. So it kind of honestly makes things easier to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have a couple more questions. We're like sort of running out of time. I'm going to open it up to live questions in a minute. But we had some really good ones submitted ahead of time. So I want to just ask a couple of these.
Okay.
Mika, I hope I'm saying it properly. She asked, what's the best platform to promote your project other than Instagram? Have you experimented with anything else or?
Other than Instagram. So my recommendation is It really depends on the subject of your project. So if you're doing a project, I have a lot of students who do projects about like video games, and kind of like stuff like that. And I always tell them like, okay, where are your people on the internet hanging out? Like everyone kind of hangs out in different little nooks of the internet. If like for me, when I promote my passion projects, I typically reach out to design blogs and I reach out to other letterers to let them know about it and to contribute to it. I post it on my Facebook, my Instagram, like anywhere I can possibly get it going at first. But then like with some of my students who do video game projects, I'm like, are there forums? Is it Reddit? Like, where do your people hang out on the internet? You can always post it there. I think that one thing that I do with my projects is depending on what it's about, like with Will Letters for Lunch, it was chalkboard lettering, but it was also food related. So I reached out to like friends who were in the design space, but also friends who were in the food space. And I think that the cool thing about having a project that is a personal interest along with a creative interest is you reach two markets. You reach the designers, you reach the creatives, you reach people who appreciate that, but then you also reach people who appreciate that other subject. So whether that's food or fashion or humor or whatever it may be. So I typically send my passion projects out. I'll send my passion projects to different websites that I follow or that I think would like it, and just be like, hi, my name's Lauren, I'm a graphic designer, here's my work, and like pitch it that way. I think that one thing that a lot of people don't know is you don't have to wait for media to find you. You can push your work out there too. It is, I know it's intimidating because you're like, we don't hear back. Just know that all editors are really busy, and like people are busy. Think about how busy you are in your regular everyday life, and like multiply that for someone who's running any media site or any design blog. But you can give your work a little bit of a push too. So I recommend that. I think that honestly, starting with your inner circle of like friends and family is a good place to start. Just try to find the people who are interested in that subject and who like that thing. And honestly, when I post my work to my personal Facebook, when I launch a project, that's where I get like a lot of shares to kind of get the ball rolling. Because you could really think of it as a chain reaction. So when you first start your project, you don't need 100,000 people to see it right away. It's going to happen slowly. All these projects that I'm talking about, I built over the course of a year or 2 years. So don't expect like immediate results. Daily Dishonesty was kind of an anomaly because it happened so fast, but also know that it's possible if you stumble across an idea that is really relatable, and gets shared by, again, like Ex-Boyfriend Tears got shared by John Green. I could not have predicted that. There's no way I could have planned or predicted for that. Or Daily Dishonesty, got featured in the Huffington Post or something. Like, you can't necessarily, don't plan on those things, but know that it's possible that one of the right shares can honestly lead to a chain reaction. And I was talking about this with, does anyone follow Andy J. Miller? He has Creative Pep Talk. He's amazing. He and I were talking about posting your work on Instagram, as you get as many, every time you post your work or share a project, it's like getting a lottery ticket. There's no guarantee that it's going to be the most amazing thing or it's going to make your career, but they're free and you get as many of them as you want. And so every time you post a piece of your passion project, maybe you've posted 10 pieces and it hasn't gotten written up about yet, or it hasn't really been shared that much, and you're feeling kind of discouraged. Don't stop there, because what if the 11th or 12th piece was like the time where someone whose dad was like a CEO at a big company saw it and then wanted to hire you? I think that one thing that's been really helpful for me in the pursuit of growing my business and career and launching these passion projects has been, you never really know what's going to happen. And a lot of it is out of your hands, and you never know who's going to see it. There could be one post that you make where there's someone who forwards it to someone who's important. There could be another post there where it doesn't. And I think the cool thing about it is, as long as you make an idea that resonates with you and your friend group, again, like your small group of people, and the chances are there are thousands of other groups of friends who are just like you, who are talking about the same things, who are passionate about the same things, whether that's, vegan baking or something, or daily, like Little White Lies. Maybe you're like joking about how awful people you are. There are people who, like certain things that you also like. And just, even if it's a niche interest, like I have a student, I kid you not, who did a project about Japanese railroad stamps and fictional video game places. And it got written up in a bunch of blogs. And that's so specific. But I think it's smart when you're specific, because if you see a thing on Instagram that says like, live, love, laugh, like you might like it and you might be like, that's nice. but you don't feel like it was made for you. You don't feel like it's speaking to you. When you choose a kind of niche interest, yeah, maybe not everyone's going to understand it or love it, but the people who do see it are going to be like blown away. They're going to be like, I cannot believe there's someone else out there who knows, what that thing is, or who likes this too. Like, this is crazy. And that's the kind of fan base you want to cultivate. I think that having it, of course, we all like, when I first started out, like the idea of having 100,000 Instagram followers was like big and sparkly and shiny. But I can honestly tell you, like, I made more money in 2015 than I did in 2016 with like half the Instagram following. So it doesn't necessarily translate to actual sales or actual projects. So I'd say, honestly, cultivating a smaller but like diehard fan base, way, way, way more powerful, because you ideally you'd rather have 10,000 followers who geek out about the same stuff that you geek out about than 100,000 followers who are kind of like lukewarm on everything and like kind of like your lettering, but don't really get it, but like maybe followed you that one time. You want people who are engaging, people who are excited about what you're excited about, because like I said, when you make projects about what you like and what you're talking about with your friends and your interests, chances are those people are in that same spot or can relate and will evolve and grow with you too. Like, I have people who have been following me since I was 21, like in college doing daily dishonesty. And they were probably 21 in college too, or around that same age, in that same kind of stage of life. And they have kind of like come along on this journey with me. Like, I've traveled, I've been in other relationships, I've done other things. And like, I keep making projects about those experiences, and that audience has grown with me. So I definitely would say, when you're starting out, it's okay to not have to see like insane Instagram growth right away, or like, get a ton of notoriety for your work. You really want to, I've been building my audience for 5 years now, like 6 years. It's a lifelong thing. And I always tell my students, it's a marathon, not like a sprint. Like, you're creative, and you want to be doing this for the next 40, 50, 60, 100 years. It's going to take that long. It's an ever growing, like ever evolving process. And be a little easier on yourself. Like, don't worry if this year isn't your like breakout year, because you don't need a breakout year to be successful. You can just have a bunch of consistent small growth years, and it adds up. It's like investing. Like, I don't really invest, so don't ask me for any financial advice, but it's like what they say about investing. You invest $1,000 when you're young, and that turns into like $100,000 by the end of your life. So just
ideally.
Totally.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I love everything you're talking about there. And like the one thing that you said right at the beginning about, figuring out where your people are hanging out. Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, I should post on Instagram because it seems like all these big letterers are posting on Instagram and that's where all the people are hanging out. But think about it. Like, if you're posting something about lettering that's also related to food, like, you need to be creative and approach those food bloggers or those food platforms that might also share it. And then you get a whole new world of people who are following you that aren't following 17 million other letterers, So
totally.
I think it's important. And a lot of people don't think outside that box. So we got one really good question from Leah, and I'm going to pop it up on the screen here. She said, first of all, Lauren, you're the best. But then she said, my question is, how do you get over being self-conscious about posting your work and what you're up to your family and friends? I always feel so awkward posting my work to people I know in real life.
Well, honestly, I mean, you're talking to somebody who posts like photos of herself wearing bread on her head. So I do run another passion project, not lettering related, which is why I didn't bring it up initially. I run a project called Flour Crowns, FLOUR crowns. And it really, it's spurred from like me joking with my friends, making like little puns. And I realized like, this is like a year and a half ago. It was like March 2017 or like maybe like February. And it was about to be music festival season. And I just made the pun, like, flower crowns. And what about instead of flowers, it was things made of flour, and thought it was dumb at first. And then I was like, no, that's funny. Like, it has nothing to do with lettering. This was not a very like strategic, I'm going to get lettering jobs project. But I was like, this is funny. I've only been lettering for the last couple months. I want to try something new. So I started making these actual crowns with headbands and croissants and cookies and stuff, and photographing them on my head in like a high fashion pose. And I would post them on my Instagram too. And all of my ex-coworkers, all of my friends, my agent, everybody can see them. And I don't really know. I think that this is kind of like a little bit one step removed. I was just texting with somebody about this morning, but a big part of I've seen a lot of growth between my work between 21 and 27. And I honestly think the more that you are comfortable being your authentic self, if you curse in real life, curse in your work. If you don't. If you, make puns and you're weird and goofy, like in real life, then you can do that, through your work too. I think me getting more comfortable in my own skin and being like, this is who I am. I have a weird sense of humor, and showing that to my friends, showing that to my family, like being who I am, it doesn't surprise them anymore when they see my work because it's actually how I am. And so I think, again, a little bit step removed because it's more like personal development, but a big shift that I've seen in my own work and my own confidence and me not being self-conscious about posting my work is that I've become more of my authentic self, and I'm not afraid to share that online. And so I don't feel like did I just
no, we're back.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi. Where did I cut out? I can backtrack a little bit.
You were just saying a big part of you not being self-conscious is, and now we're waiting.
Okay. A big part of me not being self-conscious about my work is being less self-conscious about just like me and myself in real life. I think that how confident you are in your own personal life with your sense of humor, your fashion sense, who you are as a person, just figuring that out and knowing that, it translates through your work. And so I was talking about this with my friend Sam because she is scared to get a tattoo. She really, really wants a tattoo. She's always dreamed of having tattoos. She loves the aesthetic, but her dad is really against them, and she's really worried that like she's going to upset them. And I told her, like, obviously I don't know the exact situation, and yes, respect to your parents, but the big shift that I saw in my work was, when I started getting tattoos and when I started being snarkier in my work and cursing because I curse in real life, and like showing my weird sense of humor, like flower crowns. And I think in terms of being self-conscious, I talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but when I was starting Daily Dishonesty, I didn't have Instagram, and I wasn't bombarded every day with this feed of letterers or designers that I look up to, feeling like my work wasn't as good. And so one thing, we all do it every day, like the people you follow on Instagram or online are people you admire. And so you're constantly bombarded with this feed of work that's quote unquote better than yours. And you never see the other side of that, where there are just as many people who are just starting who would look up to you. And like, even if you have a beginner skill set, that's a step ahead of someone who hasn't even started yet, who is thinking of lettering but hasn't actually picked up a pen, and you could be inspiring to them. So I always recommend that people like just take a step back, get a little bit of perspective, and realize that like you're just extra hard on yourself. The people you're comparing yourself to have been doing this for 5-10 years, and you need to cut yourself some slack. So in terms of posting in front of people that know you personally, I can't speak to it too much because I've never really felt awkward, because I've always been my weird self in real life. And so I never really felt like, what people see in person is what they get online, definitely. And so I think that a big way to bridge that gap is, just being, if you're nervous, I guess if maybe you can answer this live if we have time, but like, why do you feel weird about your friends and family, people who know your work, seeing it? Because if anything, like, I feel more comfortable, I guess, showing my work to friends and family as opposed to strangers, because they know me and they love me and they're going to be nice to me. I think.
I hope that we actually do get a response to that, because I'm curious too. But I do remember, and like, it's interesting now looking at it, because I post on my personal Facebook about what I'm doing and stuff like that. And there's kind of this, like, I've noticed this weird mix of people in my Facebook. Maybe I just have a lot of like extended friends on Facebook or something, but I have a mix between people who know me really well and are like, oh my God, you're doing amazing. Like, I'm so happy for you. This is amazing. I never knew you were into this stuff. And they're very supportive. And then I have people that I'll run into, and they still have no idea that I even do this for a living. So like, it's funny because you get all like nervous and paranoid what like your friends and family think. But I can guarantee you that like a lot of them have no idea that you're even doing it if you post it. Like, there's no chance that they're all going to see it. So, I mean, totally be yourself, and it like, no one's going to find it weird that you like art, it's, it's just your passion. So anyway, I think your answer to that was great. Like, just be yourself. And I mean, the people, if there's someone who doesn't like that you're artistic, like, why do you want to be friends with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, one bit of advice that like I would give my younger self too is, when you're creative and let's say like I think back to like, and back, maybe you can think back to this too, like think about your like high school art portfolio right now and like how embarrassing it was. But at the time, that was the best you could do. And at the time, when I put myself back into my shoes at 18, I was so proud of my high school art portfolio. And I was so excited to apply to art school. I was like so stoked. And now I look back on that and like want to vomit. And so keeping that in mind, even work, whenever I do my like annual portfolio like refresh, I always ditch 5 or 10 pieces because I've gotten better. And I don't necessarily think that's the best representation of my work anymore. And that's what you want. I think that as a creative, know that if you go into it knowing that you're extra critical of yourself and you need to be nicer, but then also know that you should look back at your work and think it's bad, because if you don't, then you haven't really evolved or grown. And so just know that like, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you outgrow different clothes, or you outgrow your teddy bear, or you outgrow clothes. Like it's just this natural progression of, I think, your creative work. And if you just look at it through the lens of anything I make today, I'm probably not going to like in 2 years. So it doesn't really matter. Like this is the best I can do now. And it's kind of like what they tell you too about like, body positivity and
it kind of for a second. Yeah, no, I got it just for a couple seconds. But yeah, no, I totally agree with all of that. I think it's like, and it's something that every artist will struggle with forever. Like it's not something that goes away.
100%. If this makes anybody feel better, I struggle with it too. Like I'll make something and people will think like it's amazing, but I'll look at it the next day and be like, oh no, like this is horrible that I made that mistake. But I will say one thing that I do in my own work is I never let that stop me from posting, because the little imperfections that you think are a problem could be really charming to somebody else. And I think that my early work is a testament to that. If you look at my early daily dishonesty pieces, there's so much wrong with them. Like once in a while, I'll do like a refresh, like I'll do like a live stream where I'll like revamp an old piece I've done and point out everything that's wrong. But at the time, I thought it looked great. I thought it was the best I could do. And because if I had been nervous about posting a daily dishonesty because it wasn't good enough, I never would have what I have now. I just posted it. It wasn't perfect. It was actually pretty bad. But I posted it under this like catchy kind of idea. And it turned out to be the thing that like saved me from a job I didn't like. It launched this career that I wasn't even planning on. And now I am just so grateful and happy that I not even had the confidence to post my work, but I didn't care. I didn't care enough when I was 21. And that kind of like ignorance was actually really amazing in terms of people are like, oh, it's so brave you posted your work, your early work. And I was like, not really. Like I didn't even think about it. So I'd say lift some of that pressure off yourself, share your work, because even if you wanted it to get 50 likes and it only got 10 likes, 10 is better than 0. If you don't post your work, you get 0 likes 100% of the time. That's just a guarantee. So 10 people seeing your work and liking your work is better than none. And so I think that, yeah, my best advice is you're going to get better. If you put your work out there now, even if it's not perfect, the pros greatly outweigh the cons. If you never post your work, you never know what could be. And I am like living, breathing proof that if you post your work, it's the best it can be at that time, and just be proud of it for what it is. It's like I was just saying that, like, it's like when you're having like a bad confidence day and you're like, oh, my hair looks horrible. Like I feel bloated. People always tell you like, okay, those things may be true. You may feel that way, but now tell me 5 things about yourself that you do like. So you can focus, even if you are nitpicking a piece apart, what are the couple things that you do like? So every time you find yourself getting into that self-criticism spiral, I would challenge you to take a step back and then point out 3 or 5 things that are actually working for it and working well in the piece. And I guarantee you'll feel better. I think where we focus our energy is so huge. And if you just focus it on what you are doing right instead of what you aren't doing right, it'll get you to where you want to be faster and much happier than kind of dragging yourself the whole time.
Totally. So we like, this is a great conversation, but we're really talking a lot. And I don't want to keep you all day. You got to go hang out with your grandma, but we have one more question, and it's kind of silly. Okay. And then I want you to talk about your passion to paid course, because I think people will be interested in it. So Jodi asked, have you ever tried dipping Cheetos in ketchup?
You know what? I have not. That is new. Someone actually sent me an email like last week saying, have you ever, like, PS, like, you should try dipping Cheetos in cream cheese. Does anyone do that? Someone told me that, like, it's the best snack because it's like spicy, crunchy, creamy. It sounded gross at first, and I haven't tried it yet because I haven't gone to the store and bought cream cheese in a while. But that's what on my list. So I do actually have ketchup in the fridge, so that might happen first. I will definitely try it. It sounds good.
Yeah.
I'd be cheese and ketchup. Yeah.
I haven't tried it, and that doesn't sound appealing to me. But I've done Doritos and sour cream. Delicious.
Yes.
Very, very good. Yeah.
I feel like Doritos and sour cream is like Cheetos and cream cheese. Similar camp.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, you can't go wrong. Okay, so I'm gonna link everybody to your course, but I know it's not open right now. But can you explain a little bit about what that's all about?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is less of a promo because I probably won't open it again till the fall. So because I've launched all these passion projects after Will Letter for Lunch, I realized I was like, hey, like I've launched these projects and they all are boosting my career in these ways. And I never really thought about it from like a zoomed out strategic thing, but I was like, hey, I think that there's something to these passion projects, and this could be like the key to making work that you're excited about, that work that you can add to your portfolio when maybe you're not stoked about what you're working on at your office job or for your freelance work, because sometimes you just don't have control over that. So I spent like a year putting together like breaking down like, how do I come up with these ideas? What are my brainstorming processes? And then what is like the game plan that I take in terms of, setting up a system of bringing it to life, promoting it, leveraging that into freelance work. And so I think early last year, early 2017, I launched the first like round of it, and the response has been amazing. So basically it's a 10-week class where every week you get like a video lesson, and then I do a Facebook Live like we're doing right now, where I do a Q&A where people can ask questions about that week's lesson, and we can just kind of like bounce around ideas, and it's really fun. So it's like a half live, half pre-recorded class. Really I tried to make it as manageable as possible because I personally get overwhelmed when like I sign up for a course and it's like, okay, here's 100 videos now, and I'm just like so it's really manageable. It's about, I'd say it's like an hour of time a week. The videos are like 10 minutes. The Facebook Live is like an hour. So actually, no, it's like an hour and a half a week. And then the coursework can be done. It's pretty manageable. But yeah, the whole 10 weeks, it's meant to be to get your creative juices flowing, to help you think in a more conceptual, strategic way in terms of what your passion project could be. I really try to help you identify what it is that you're passionate about in life and then in your career, and try to mix those two together into this like little fireball project that you're excited to work on. Maybe you haven't worked on something that you're excited about in a while. This is a passion project is a great way to do that. And then I help people bring it to life and actually make it happen. So it's a little bit of accountability, a little bit of strategy, a little bit of creativity. And I just wrapped up actually last week. The third session of the class just finished. And it's been kind of amazing. If you go to the Passion to Paid, I think you're linking to it on the screen right now. But if you go to the landing page, you can kind of see other projects that students have done, what they've said about the class, and you can kind of get a sense of what kind of projects come out of this class and who takes it. And it's just really exciting because every class I get this wave of new students. I've worked with illustrators, graphic designers, stop motion animators, writers. Like, I think a passion project is for anybody, and especially for this group because it's hand lettering. Lettering is a great skill to have, and a passion project is honestly, especially, I would say this, I mean, I'm a letterer too, but passion projects are a great way to differentiate yourself from every other letterer who's out there. Because if you aren't necessarily thinking conceptual, with lettering, because I started in 2012 and it's grown exponentially in popularity over the last 6 years, which is not a bad thing. I think it's great that more people know about lettering, but it means that it's harder to stand out. So you can't necessarily get away with lettering inspirational quotes anymore. I think that you can, but it's much harder to stand out because for every inspirational quote that you letter, 1,000 other people are lettering the same one that day. And it's not bad, but it also means that you might get your voice might get kind of lost in the sea of lettering content out there. So I think that Passion to Paid is especially potent for letterers because it helps you think of, okay, well, if inspirational quotes and song lyrics aren't going to get me noticed, what will? What about me is special and unique? What do I have to say? What kind of series of phrases can I come up with that are either entertaining or powerful or different than what everybody else is lettering. And so even if you don't sign up for Passion to Paid, I run a weekly challenge. So every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern time, I send out an email with a little creative prompt that gives you something more interesting than a song lyric to letter. So every Friday, I've been doing that for 23 weeks now. I did not set an end date on this. I just kind of let it go forever. So hopefully it'll go on for the rest of the year. It's definitely it's becoming harder to manage because I was like, oh, like maybe a couple thousand people will sign up for it. It'll be no big deal. And then, so we're 23 weeks in and there are almost 20,000 people signed up for it, which is so exciting because every week you have 20,000 people. Well, not everyone does the challenge in real time, but we have thousands of people working off of the same brief. And it's so exciting to see what people are coming up with, because the cool thing about homework is that, I mean, it's free, but I'm never going to give you a phrase to letter, like letter this specific quote. I always give you prompts that kind of guide you towards coming up with your own copy, coming up with your own phrases. And I think that it's been really cool to see people. I have people who have emailed me who have been like, oh, my Instagram following has grown so much, or I've been getting so much engagement. And I honestly think a lot of it is attributed to the fact that like you're lettering something different than most other letterers out there. And even though there are tons of people who are doing the challenge, in the grand scheme of things, like you're standing out exponentially more. So I would love for you to join me for that too. Every Friday at 7 a.m. you get a new one. I think Becca just linked to, I have a challenge archive of all the existing ones. So there are 23 so far. So if you wanted to get started on the first one, you could right now if you're feeling extra inspired. It also gives you a little bit of insight into, they're kind of like almost baby Passion to Paid things where I give you little prompts where you can kind of see where my brain's at in terms of thinking of like these little kind of creative projects that'll differentiate you from other people. So I'll be running Passion to Paid, the full course. It's 10 weeks. Be running that probably October this year. So it'll be a while, but definitely follow along with me on Instagram. And I post about my students' work all the time. And then follow along with homework, because even I would say too, don't be nervous if you're doing like 10 other challenges, because we're all ambitious here. Even if you just sign up for it and read the briefs and don't do the work, I think that they're valuable. I think that it's just good it's almost kind of like a insider little blog post from me every week where I talk about why I think it's important, what this lesson can teach you, can give you a little bit of direction of what to letter that week. Because I think one thing I realized, the barrier of entry for letterers, a lot of people would be like, I want to start lettering, but I don't know what to letter. I'm tired of lettering the word love. I'm tired of lettering just random words. But I can't write. I don't know how to write. And I always tell people, you don't have to know how to write to be a letterer or to make interesting content. If you just make stuff about your own life, inside jokes, little things that you and your friends say, I think that that's even a great starting place. So yeah, those are the things that I currently have going on. And if any of you are still following me in October, I would love to have you in Passion to Paid. It's always such a great group. It's cool too, because everyone brainstorms live in the Facebook group for it. And I'm always so blown away by like how creative other people are, and like how it's been very validating, I think, to break down the process and see other people use it and see that it actually works. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm good at drawing, but I'm not good at coming up with ideas. And I want to dispel that myth so hard, because everyone is good at coming up with ideas. It sometimes just takes a little bit of prompting, I think.
Well, I think you're doing it with homework for sure. So all of the links for everything Lauren's talking about are going to be, I'm going to have a blog post. This is going to be on YouTube. You'll be able to get everything. But if you want to follow Lauren, the link is up on the screen right now. So Hom Sweet Hom, and her website is the same. And yeah, if you are interested in doing passion projects and need a little bit of Lauren's guidance, you'll be able to sign up October.
Yes.
And yeah, if you need those extra prompts, homework is amazing. And just following that hashtag is fun if you're not going to participate. So
it is fun to follow the hashtag.
Yeah. So is there anything else you wanted to talk about at the end, or should we just wrap this up? I think other people have a lot to think about.
I know. That was like a ton of information coming your way. I hope that even if it's a little overwhelming, you know, the ball's kind of rolling, the creative juices are flowing, and you're starting to think of like, okay, like, and I want you to know too, like I, again, started my passion projects when I was 21 years old, and maybe some of you are 21, maybe some of you are older. Like, just know that there's never a bad time to start one. I think that if a 21-year-old college student can start
Oh, your sound's gone, Lauren. Your sound's gone. Did they die? I can't hear you. Okay, so let's do sign language. I'm just kidding. No, it's kind of perfect timing because we got to wrap up anyway. So I'll put all the links and everything. The YouTube channel will have all of this stuff. And thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure we'll talk after this, but yeah, you can't hear me. Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.